Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for your patience. We are so excited and honored to have Wanuri Kahiu here with us, who is an amazing, groundbreaking director. My name is Cerece Rennie Murphy, and I'm the founder of Virtuous Con, and I've been a fan of Wanuri's for a very long time. So I'm going to try not to, fully fangirl, but feel free to fangirl for me and fanboy and fan everybody for me in the chat. All right, so let's get started. Wanuri Kahiu is a filmmaker, speaker, and science fiction writer. Kahiu's award-winning film, Rafiki, was the first Kenyan film to be invited to Cannes Film Festival, which I don't even know how, that's just crazy. But anyway, and has since won multiple awards across the world. Kahiu is a cultural leader for the World Economic Forum, an advocate for freedom of expression, and an Afro bubblegum activist. And you're about to find out what that is. Championing the need for the creation and curation of fun, fierce, and frivolous African art. Kahiu is the director for Washington Black for Hulu 20th Century Fox, which completed principal photography in 2022, an adaptation of the book by Issei Edugayan, and I don't know if I said that well or not. She's director of the Netflix film Look Both Ways, starring Lily Reinhart, Luke Wilson, and Nia Long, released in August 2022, and is attached to direct Once on This Island for Disney. Kahiu was also named Times 100 Next in 2019. Welcome. We're thrilled to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm sorry for the wait.
It's worth it. We're thrilled to have you. Oh my gosh. I wanted to start with a question about how you began this journey as a filmmaker. But I have to, as I was reading through the bio, and Rafiki was the first Kenyan film to be invited to the Cannes Film Festival. What was that like? And are you given the long tradition of African filmmaking, I'm like, how is that possible? So I want to just put a pin in that, but because I'd love to hear sort of what that experience was like. And did you know that at the time? But first, can you share with us the moment that you knew you had to be a filmmaker, and what was your biggest fear in making that decision?
So when I was about 16, I walked into a TV studio in Nairobi, and they were trying to get a new private broadcasting company up and running, but we were living under dictatorship under Moi, and that was never going to happen. But the moment I realized, just walking in, that people make TV and film, it kind of changed everything for me, because I knew I was a bookworm, I knew I was a telly addict. So I was just like, oh, if this is what people make, then I should be making it. And that was it. So that's what I knew. And that was it. That was it for me.
That's amazing. What were some of your favorite shows?
Oh my gosh. But we grew up on American TV, properly on American TV. Not even, because we had one TV station that was completely controlled by the government. Mm-hmm. So the only way that we got TV was by recorded videotapes of American TV record, including commercials.
Wow.
So they would just record it, right, completely bootleg. Yeah. It was no, not on our TV. We would go to the video rental store and rent June 19th to 1986 TV for, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And it was just recorded American TV on videotapes, and we would go to a proper VHS shop to rent American TV. So sounds so different saying it out loud. But so I grew up on every white show that you grew up on.
Oh my gosh. We have to have a talk about representation. I remember watching, Charlie's Angels and Three's Company.
Yeah.
All that. And I'm going to jump in and ask you this. Often the conversation about representation is, you never saw Black women on Dukes of Hazzard. I never wanted to see us on Dukes. I was embarrassed for Daisy Duke. I couldn't believe how the girls on Three's Company were treated. I just assumed as a kid that so many of the roles for women were so ridiculous that Black women had just decided to become doctors and lawyers instead. And I knew, I saw them and do other things. So I just thought, oh, we're just too smart to play these ridiculous roles. That's why we're not. What did you think?
Well, I mean, at the time, the women that we were seeing were on the Cosby Show, were on the Jeffersons, were on what's that show with JJ?
Oh yeah, Good Times.
Good Times. So they were either all Black women on TV for me were just fierce. They were just like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it just seemed to be
we were having a bad time. It was
we were always like, oh, you men. Oh, these men. Oh, you know what I mean? There was always like a frustration at the man. So it was just a weird portrayal of Black women. There was no, and it was not nuanced. It always seemed one note, regardless of what show you were watching. So it was quite a complex thing, trying to untangle that and see who you are in that spectrum of oneness,
No, absolutely. Did A Different World and the Cosby Show and Claire Huxtable and all the daughters, did that change that for you at all? Did you feel like
Claire Huxtable was the only one who was kind of the softest? Don't you think?
I thought
and they only showed up in comedy, right? So Sanford and Son, angry, unless angry or dead.
Angry, one may lead to the other. Yeah.
So it was just curious. There was not enough nuance. So I really appreciate like shows like This Is Us, because it felt like, oh my gosh, that is a loving Black couple,
Yeah.
And that felt fresh. And that's the kind of representation I'm interested in. I'm interested in joyous, loving, nuanced versions of ourselves. So yes, we do get angry at everybody, including the men, but that's not only it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is the softness of vulnerability, the falling in love, and I really did miss out on seeing some of that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. There was almost none of that. I mean, until maybe the 90s. Vivian Banks. That's right. That's right.
True. Yeah.
Well, given that you've done such a wide range of films, from drama to documentary to science fiction, in addition to that loving softness and nuance, you've done romantic comedies. Is there a specific criteria that you use to decide on a project? Love Jones, yes. Or is there a sort of common theme, or do you just sort of go with your instinct? Like what draws you to a project? Because you've done so many different types.
Well, the first thing is what draws me to a project like Hope and Joy, right? Is that if there is hopeful, joyful representations of life, and if they are, and mostly female-led work. So Washington Black, or it's a TV show. It's coming out later this year. Please watch it. Was one of the few projects I've done with a lead male.
Yes.
And that was also really interesting, because even when I started pitching for the job, I remember asking if I was well suited, but also it became such a story about a relationship between a child and the world they grow up in, that I felt like I could contribute to that. But initially I was just like, I don't often do men. You know what I mean? I just don't often. They're not often my leads. So that's the first work that I've done with a lead male character.
Yes, I'm very excited. I'm very excited that it's coming about. Do you know when it will be out? I know you finished.
Hopefully sometime later this year, I think, is what we're hoping for. Yeah.
That's wonderful, but a sense of joy, and well, that leads right into Rafiki. And but first I want you to tell us about what Afro Bubblegum is. why you
Sure.
created your own genre, and if Rafiki is sort of the personification of that, and then what other films that you think sort of speak to that aesthetic.
So Afro Bubblegum was in reaction to a series of different things. One incident was I was traveling to the States, and on the border, because I had to go through Europe to come here, on the border of Europe, I was going to show Pumzi, and they stopped me at the border and they said, "Why are you coming? Why are you going to America? And you have a visa. This is really no reason for them for immigration in the middle of nowhere to be asking you any questions." I had my visa. I had all my paperwork, you know? Anyway, he stopped me and he said, "Why are you," it was actually a white woman, "Why are you going to America?" I said, "Oh, to screen my film." And they said, "Why is your film so important?" And I was shook. I was like, what the first thing was ego. Was like, "What do you mean my film? Why?" You know what I mean? First it was complete ego. And then after that, it was just a curiosity. Like, when do you ask a white filmmaker why their work is important? You know, when a filmmakers ask that. And then I thought, why does it have to be a burden on us for work to be important? Is it that because we're Black and, oh, suffrage, oh, we can only see ourselves in one light, and so we're only able to produce work that is like important or doing the most or changing the world? Why can't we just be fun, fierce, and frivolous? Right? And then I started looking at art that was just based on imagination, that was just fun, fierce, and frivolous, that was full of radical hope and awakened joy, right? And wasn't and I started to call that work Afro Bubblegum because I found so many expressions of joy, of Black joy, especially in our work, and not just now, in the past. And in Africa's past. So I started to look at work from the continent as well that was not an expression of a tradition or a circumcision or a marriage, but it was just like, we are joyful beings, we have an imagination, and we express our imagination. You know? So that's what Afro Bubblegum became. It just became a word for fun, fierce, and frivolous. And then I started to create a test for Afro Bubblegum work, which is, can I even remember? Is are people sick? Are one or two or more colored people in this film sick or dying? Desperate, hopeless, or lost, or in need of saving? Yeah. And if the answer was yes, then it was like, then that shit is not Afro Bubblegum, you know? So it was just like, it felt like the Bechdel test for feminism. I was just like, we need our own test to see whether or not our work is joyful, or we're going to continue to plague with the fact that, you know, people think that they need to save us through our own work. Just ludicrous.
I love that so much. I call that the mad, bad, sad narrative. You know, it's like we're either mad, we're bad, things are bad, or we're sad. Like we can't seem to break out of that. And, you know, it's such a joyful experience being a part of the Black community, being a Black woman. And it's just, sometimes it's a struggle to see that in popular media, although that's the reality that I live and that so many that I know live. But I love that. I love that. So talk to me about Rafiki. So you decide you're going to do a love story, and you decide that it's going to be colorful and joyful and full of wonder. And for anybody who hasn't seen it, I'm very sad and sorry for you, but you can go, luckily it's available on streaming, and you can do that because it's anything but mad, bad, or sad. Even though I knew that going in, I was still anxious because I'm always waiting for like the other shoe to drop. Do you ever have that feeling when you're watching a film?
100%.
It's just like, oh God, please don't let the police come out, or something like that. But tell me about the process of shaping that. Tell us about the process of shaping that and bringing that to the world, and then sort of what the reaction was to your joyful, bright, beautiful film.
So Rafiki was based on a short story by Monica Raktenyeko called Jambula Tree. And it was such a beautiful portrayal of just like young love. And I wanted to tell a love story because I hadn't seen love stories that much growing up, you know? it felt like that. It felt like whenever you went and you watched like an African love story, you're just like, oh, they're dead. You know what I mean? It was like, oh,
Something
you have
bad
the
is going
AIDS.
to happen.
You know what I mean? It was just like, it was always like a lesson for us about like safe sex, or like it was never just love for love's sake. It was always like a morality tale or something, you know. I'm sure super heavily funded by the Christian right, American right wing. So it became like torturous to watch ourselves in love, but everybody else was falling in love, you know, growing up. Everybody else, it just wasn't us. So I wanted to tell a love story. So that's where it started. And then we made the film. And it was quite a joyful experience, even on set, because we managed to also just have so many women on set that it you could feel the energy and how energy changes when you have a proper balance of all types of people on set, you know. And proper representation without it being representation, you know, just like good people who want to work hard, who come from all walks of life, who all have different stories and perspectives. So that was the first thing. And then once the film was made, we had to apply to get whatever a rating. So whether it's PG or whatever. But when we went to Kenya, it was banned. So the film continues to be banned, which means it cannot be exhibited, bought, sold, distributed, or possessed within the Republic of Kenya. Even my posters are illegal in Kenya.
Wow.
So that became a thing. But it was really, really celebrated everywhere else in the world as just as a piece of art and work.
Yeah.
As a story that's coming out of the continent, but also as a love story, and that was really, really beautiful. So it went on to go into the Cannes Film Festival, which was amazing, truly like amazing, especially when you're in an industry where you often feel like you don't belong. Walking down the red carpet that you know countless of other like filmmakers that you have respected or have walked down was immensely powerful, and just like it felt like I finally was part of this filmmaking tribe of people, you know. And then it played in different places. It played in Toronto, and is continuing to do whatever that little film can do.
And it was played for, did I read correctly, like a weekend or something? It was allowed to
10 days.
Yeah,
it was
10
it
days.
played for 10 days in Nairobi, but we took the government to court because in order to qualify for Best International, the film has to be open for 7 consecutive days in the country of origin. So we went to court petitioning for it to be opened for 7 days, and the judge lifted the ban for 7 days, and then it was closed down. But that judge has since left, because we're still in court fighting for freedom of expression, which is much larger than this film. But just the idea that as an adult you have the possibility to choose or not choose what you want to watch, and the government has no sanction on what you can watch.
Absolutely. So tell me, were you surprised that you were the first Kenyan film, that Rafiki was the first?
I truly was. I didn't realize until I think the lead up. I think it was actually Cam who told us. It was the lead up to the festival that we found out, and I just thought it was. But it's not surprising, because most of African films have often come from West Africa, and East Africa, and also because of the way the dreaded colonization happened. You know, French also colonized through art and culture as well. You know, and the English just colonized through hate and brutality. You know.
Different
So it was, they suppressed everything. They suppressed our creativity, they suppressed our languages, they suppressed our religions, they suppressed everything. So there was no art coming out of British colonized places, unfortunately, for people of color.
That is just powerful. And it makes me so much more appreciative of what you're doing, because you're reminding people what is in them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just such a beautiful thing. So I hope you recognize that. We only have 9 minutes left. And yeah, I know it just slapped me in the face too, really, to think about just the layers of oppression. All right. I want to ask one more question. If any, we already have some questions in the Q&A. I just want to ask, I'm trying to think of all my questions that I have for you.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. It's all right. We're getting the chance to be with you. All right, I'm going to let this, we have to talk about Pumzi. I can't even tell you how many times I have watched Pumzi. It was my introduction to you. I've watched it at least 20 times, at least 20 times. I mean, it's like an embarrassing amount. And I wanted to, it is for those of you who don't know, and thank you, yes, for putting that, life is too short not to be watching Pumzi, and it just is. So it's, it's a feature-length film?
No, it's a short.
In less than 20 minutes. No, but it is. It's about what directors take 3 hours to do. Wanuri took about 15 to do. And I don't know how you did that. It was one of your first films.
It was one of my first, it was my third or fourth film at the time, yes.
And it just, so my question was, see, I told y'all I'm fangirling. I need to get to a question. Like, it is are we going to get, all right, I'm just going to, everybody watch it. Are we going to get a full length? Because there's more, I need to know. You left her by the tree. Come on. How did she get there? What happened to the world?
You see, this is a question that keeps coming up. And I honestly, I thought my story with Pumzi was done. You know what I mean? I was just like, I've made it. I've said what I need to say. And then I walked away. But it's a question that keeps coming up to the point I'm just like, maybe I should.
We are right. We are right. You need to
because
go back.
It took me 2 years to write that 21 minutes. 2 years of like research. Like I have such random research about futurism because of it. And what I know to be true is still, for when I was making Pumzi, is still true, is that we are coming, the next major war will not be for territory, will not be for religion, will be for water, will be for owning water rights. And that's true. Our environment is headed in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're paying attention.
So that still holds true. So, and also we'll just be fighting Coca-Cola because Coca-Cola and Nestle are buying all the water rights in the world. Like, so that's who we're going to be fighting. We won't be fighting companies, we'll be fighting corporations. So it's interesting to me to start to create a world about that. And I haven't figured out what shape it takes, but it's something that I'm definitely thinking about very carefully.
Well, when you have to fight with all the people who have to finance and all of these things, you let them know that we at Virtuous Con stand ready to watch. We can have a whole panel of people who can testify to how much you need to express this. One of the questions in the chat was Rafiki banned because it was a queer love story?
100%. And not only was it banned because it was a queer love story, it was banned because at the end, they were not remorseful about their love. I was told if I changed the end and I made the women remorseful about their relationship, then the ban would be lifted. And I refused to do that.
It's one of the sweetest love stories. I mean, it's just so sweet. It's just crazy to think, that's the conclusion, but yeah.
Yeah,
and
I wasn't about to make one of those films where you're just like, they loved each other, but it was wrong. You know what I mean? I'm not about punishing expressions of love. That's not who I am or who I was meant to be. But also, I think it's important to say that the only way we're coming to a point in our lives where we as audience members become decision makers in a really, really fundamental way. We're moving to streaming in a massive way, and filmmakers like myself and others have started to say that we deserve to see the films that we're given. Because if you know that there's a person of color, anybody who's LGBT plus behind the camera or in front of the camera, or any of the issues that you believe and support, if you don't watch the film, they'll say, there's no audience for them. So this is what I say, even if you hate a movie, but you know it was made by a Black person, just like press play on Netflix or Amazon, leave it running in the background, go do your thing, just so we can collect the data. Just do it for the data. It's really important to support work that you want to be able to get seen and get made, because it's up to us now. It's up to us as audience and as data points, because that's all we are to corporations, to make sure that we're supporting the work that we want to see and the work that we want to get made. So do it for the data. Press like, watch Black movies, watch movies that you think that are important to you, watch queer movies, watch everything that you think that is relevant to your life now. And just do it for the data, because that's what they use to decide what movies we make next.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Okay, with 3 minutes left, tell us what your next projects. We talked a little about Washington Black. I want to ask two things. I'm just going to throw them at you so that you can decide how you want. Okay, first thing, what are you reading or watching that brings you joy that you want to recommend? Because you got to spread the love. It's so hard to discover content. And then tell us where we can support you and find you and all the things.
Okay. I'm on Twitter, and in theory, I'm loosely on Twitter and Instagram, very loosely, just because, you
can testify to that.
Yeah. On @Wanuri, WANURI, @Wanuri. That's my Instagram, my Twitter. You can find me there, in theory. And then I just finished Washington Black, which I think is just an epic tale of imagination, hope, and what the human spirit can do. And it's just Sterling K. Brown is in it. He produces it. And it's just a remarkable show that comes out on Hulu later this year. And it's truly on every level about Black brilliance. I'm working on a musical, Once on This Island, that was a Broadway musical that is a story set on an island, deals with colorism and true love and gods, which is an epic musical. And we are working on moving it from a stage play or a stage musical to a live action film, right? So that's hopefully in the works in the future. And then I have some serious, like, world-changing vibe films I also want to make. Just some serious revolutionary system-killing films that I think I want to make in the future. So that's also what I'm working on.
Oh my gosh, we are here for all of it. This is not nearly enough time. I want you to know right now that we're inviting you back, because I want that extra time. You saw all my questions.
I know.
You didn't even get to most of them.
I know.
But I'm thrilled. I just want to thank you so much for this time, for sharing your perspective of how you create your art and share it with us. So thank you so much, Wanuri. It's been wonderful. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.